We are now joined by former Arkansas great and about to be a part of the National Football Foundation's College Football Hall of Fame, the great Dan Hampton, with us. And Dan, thank you so much for your time. What does this mean to you? Well, you've known about it, but what will this now mean to you when it becomes official?
Well, thank you. You're so kind. I will tell you this morning we had a press conference, and they read off some stats. 18 million people have played college football in the last 137 years or whatever it is. And there's only about 300 in the Hall of Fame. So, I mean, it's a very, very small percentile. And when you look at it in those, terms in that relationship, you go, wow, that was amazing. But I can't tell you this is all, Dan Hampton doing. It was, I played on some fabulous football teams. We beat the number one team in the nation and wound up with the share of the national championship when nobody gave us a chance. We beat Oklahoma in the Orange Bowl when we were 23-point underdogs. So all of those different things and all of is a part of the mosaic that has kind of come full circle. And now, after some 40-something years playing at Arkansas, I'm now going into the College Hall of Fame. It's unbelievable.
It is usually people do it in the other order, Dan. They do the college first and then the Pro Football Hall of Fame. But you are, you've got the gold jacket. You are part of some of those great teams. But Arkansas back then, I think there's a lot of younger fans who may not realize what a juggernaut and what it was playing for the Frank Broyles teams and everything after that. What do you remember about being a Razorback and calling the Hogs?
I got to tell you, and it was a different time, a different era, but our coaches, they believed in you better be in shape and you better be willing to hit people. And we didn't have the biggest, most talented players on both sides of the ball. But my goodness, let me give you an illustration. The great Earl Campbell. I talked to NFL players that played against him once or twice, and they go, oh, my God, I played against him 3 times in college. And he never got over 100 yards. We just had a bunch of, scrappy dudes that wanted to fly around and hit people. And that was kind of like, our mantra, our calling card. We said, yeah, you may be, a more talented team, but we will out-scrap you. And in the world of football, well, that has a lot to do with the outcome of the game. And I think, in my 4 years at Arkansas, we won the Orange Bowl, we won the Cotton Bowl, and we played in the Fiesta Bowl to a tie. So, in those 4 years, the Razorbacks will never be in those kind of major bowl games again in my lifetime. But, for that moment in time, our teams, they were special.
Dan, the 31-6 win against Oklahoma in the Orange Bowl. Roland Sales, of course, was a huge story along with what you guys did. A lot of it's about how well they ran the ball. You, the Hogs, against Oklahoma, which was known for doing that. But defensively, you actually Sales had over 200 yards. You guys shut down that Oklahoma option and everything else. What was the mentality entering that game, and what was it like when you guys dominated that game?
Well, again, it was Arkansas. Oklahoma had been a perennial, favorite in the world of college football. They were number one. They had won the national championship for years here and there. The Razorbacks, we just were like, hey, what about us? We need and deserve a little bit of credit, and we approached that game with a certain vigor that we knew what we had to do. We had to shut down their mighty wishbone option where they had 3 first-round draft picks at running back, and on offense we needed to move the chains and keep the ball away from them. And it worked out perfectly. And Lou Holtz, one of the great, great, great coaches of all time, he'll always have a special place in my heart. But I'll tell you this, it made him a nationwide celebrity because of that accomplishment, and he deserved it.
And the suspensions, right? What was that like as you being a major part of that team? I don't know if you were a captain that year. I'm sure you were. But when he suspended the players, what was the reaction like at that time, and did that just galvanize everybody?
The latter. You had it right there, perfect word. It galvanized us. And here's the thing. If you know what the rules are and you break them, that's on you.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had a deal where if a player was, arrested and we had a dorm incident, 88% of our offense was suspended by these three players that had accounted for 88%. Well, it did not seem to affect us mentally and obviously as far as the performance. But from top to bottom, the hidden hand of that game was about a guy named Monty Kiffin. And a lot of people know who Monty Kiffin is. Now everybody thinks, oh, that's Lane Kiffin's dad. Monty Kiffin was a brilliant defensive coach, and he completely changed our defensive scheme. And we had a month to get ready for, the New Year's Day bowl game. And we completely changed our defense, and Oklahoma was not ready for it. And before they knew it, baby, we pounced on them. And it was a great night. And to this day, there's a poll, the greatest Razorback teams of all time. And then back in 1963, the great Jimmy Johnson, Barry Switzer, and Larry Lacewell, all these other great players. Still to this day, that 78 Orange Bowl winning team is voted year in and year out the greatest Razorback team, and I'm so proud to have been a part of it.
And that says something because they had that team in the early mid-'60s that won the national title. Dan Hampton being inducted tonight into the College Football Hall of Fame with us on 365 Sports. Paul?
Dan, how would you compare the coaching styles of Mike Ditka to Lou Holtz?
Well, in an abstract way, they're very similar. They were completely demanding, and they stressed meritocracy, which is, hey, you get what you earn. And nobody got a free ride. Nobody was played favorites, and everybody had to work hard. And, yeah, some players excelled and had great acclaim and notoriety, but it wasn't by design. It was by the way they played. And I loved playing for Lou. And I will tell you this, my first 3 years in the pros, I played for a head coach, wonderful man, but he wasn't that type of coach. I felt lost. And then when Ditka came in, I shook my head and said, man, this is the guy. And it was 4 years later, we are down in New Orleans winning the Super Bowl. And like people, say, the best plans of mice and men. It was the goal. It was the objective. And Mike Ditka said, this is what's going to happen if we do this. And both of those coaches, they stressed discipline, tenacity, and, hey, if you wanted to be great, go out there and prove it.
All right, the 85 Bears, everybody knows as destructive of a team, of opponents as anyone could possibly be. Walter Payton, Mike Singletary, we're here in Waco. Dan, of course, he played at Baylor with Grant Taft. You, Richard Dent, Jim Covert, and then Bam Bam, Steve McMichael, finally enshrined into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I got goosebumps bringing that up. What did that mean to you?
Well, as you know, my dear friend, Steve McMichael, legendary player for the Bears, he was stricken with ALS 4 years ago, and it's been an awful story. But the silver lining is the Hall of Fame did what they needed to do, and they elected and inducted him into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And as great as that is, Richard Dent's in the Hall of Fame. 3 out of the 4 defensive linemen on that defense were in the Hall of Fame. But we're not the most famous member of the defensive line. That is William the Refrigerator Perry. I'm out in Vegas for the banquet tonight, and I've had 5 different people. Hey, how's Fridge? How's Fridge? He was a nationwide novelty and everybody's favorite player because he was just he was an amazing athlete, and it was such great fun playing with him. But you're exactly right. We had some terrific players. I think we've got 5, 6 guys in the Hall of Fame now. But make no mistake, that team, it was led, and the footing and foundation of it was the great Walter Payton.
Yeah, the great Walter Payton, the Walter Payton Man of the Year award. Dan, the 85 team was so dominant. I'll never forget the game in Dallas, or in, I guess it was Irving against the Cowboys, when you just pummeled them, I think like 44-0. What was it like being on that team? It seemed like everybody had a hell of a lot of fun, but on game day, you guys had fun because you pulverized most everybody.
Oh, and we had fun the other days too. But the thing being, we always had a great deal of focus. We were so goal-oriented and driven. But the Dallas Cowboys just happened to be the 11th game we played that year, and we were 10-0. And I'll never forget flying down to Texas. Somebody showed me an article. Everson Wall said, well, the Bears are 10-0 and they ain't played nobody yet, though. Well, as soon as the game was over, we'd won 44-0. I went to the media and I said, well, now we're 11-0. We still ain't played nobody. So we didn't make no friends in Dallas. But I got to tell you, Mike Ditka felt bad because he had come out of the Dallas organization. He loved Tom Landry, but we were like wild dogs. We had no favorites and no friends. We got after everybody. And it was, as you said, it was a great time to play the game of football.
You mentioned Walter Payton and how he set the culture of the team, which I think that if you look like historically on teams, if you looked at really what you guys had, because you had Jim McMahon's, we've met him several times. Still to this day, one of the weirdest, wildest, craziest dudes ever. And sometimes that kind of vibe is not great, but if you have personalities that can balance, and a leader like Walter Payton, and a guy who is serious as a heart attack like Mike Singletary, and then what you guys had a nice personality balance on that squad, didn't you?
Certainly did. And, you talk about Mike Singletary. He was such a treasure at middle linebacker. But we also had Dennis Gentry. Mm-hmm. We loved Dennis Gentry. He was our gadget guy on offense, returning punts, returning kicks, third down, all those different. We just had an amazing blend of very talented players. But your point about the personality, not everybody can be, Tom Brady, the leader. You got to have some folks that kind of do their job, and then you got to have the leaders kind of set the pace. And we did that in such a great fashion that year. But you asked about McMahon. Just to give you an idea how nuts he was, they asked Ditka the day before the Super Bowl, there's been death threats on your quarterback. He received death threats. Are you worried about him or his reaction or his mental state of mind going into the game? And Ditka said, no. Hampton and McMichael have threatened to kill him at least 5 times. So it was, we were, that movie came out before our time, but it was the Bad News Bears, and we wanted to be the monsters of the Midway.
Dan, if you don't mind, one more question. I asked about what it will be like tonight when you accept it. And again, for everyone watching, there's the awards and honors tonight in college football. Some of them were handed out last night, but the inductions by so many. And we're going to get a short list here in a minute of a few that are tied in some ways to either the former Big 12 or the current Big 12. When they called you, what was your reaction to tell you that you were going to be inducted?
Well, and I'm not being facetious, but I was shocked. And I'll tell you why. I played at Arkansas 40-something years ago. Mm-hmm. Everybody's either gone, dead, or don't care now. And you have to have a certain bit of vibe out of your college. Every team has had great players. Every team, every college wants to have people in the Hall of Fame. And there's almost like a lobbying effort that, a lot of people really do on a pretty large scale. Well, I never had, but for this to happen, I got to. I'll be 67. Well, I am 67. It's been 40-something years. Never thought it would happen. It only makes it more special.
Yeah, and well-deserved, well-earned is what I say as well. Dan, enjoy it. Thanks to Phil Marwell and everyone for helping set up the segment with you. It's been. I love your outlook on life. You seem to be very happy, and you also seem to enjoy everything you've been able to be a part of, and also hope you enjoy the heck out of tonight in Las Vegas.
Well, you were asking, thank you so much, but you were asking about the Big 12. Well, before the Big 12, it was the Southwest Conference.
Yep, absolutely.
And I was the Defensive Player of the Year in '78. The next year, it was Steve McMichael in '79, and 1980, it was Mike Singletary, and we were the guys that in the middle of that defense for the next decade in Chicago. So there's your pretty good tie into the guys in the College Hall of Fame and the early days of the Big 12 and the Southwest Conference.
Dan, great stuff. Thank you so much. Enjoy it, and we maybe bring you back on at some point when Arkansas is making a run, hopefully pretty soon in football when they get themselves kind of back together again. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much, and all I can say is go Hogs.
There you go. There you go. Pig Suey, Dan Hampton.